thrilled that today in the schedule, we've got Mark Jensen, the founder and product leader at Insignia Innovations. I think there's a huge market for product support on a fractional basis. So this is fantastic alignment. And on behalf of the community, Mark, welcome. If you would share a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, thank you for having me, Ward. Really good to be here with the community and sharing a little bit about myself and Insignia Innovations and what I'm working on. So I'll share a little bit about myself. I studied finance and economics for my undergrad here in Atlanta, Georgia at Kennesaw State University. Got my first real job at UPS in their corporate office a couple of miles down the road.
Oh, wow.
Did that for about 4 years. As you can imagine, 400,000 employees globally at the time, 104-year-old company at the time. A little bit dry, a little stale maybe for my taste. So I decided to join a Silicon Valley startup called Simply Hired. That was my first entrance into the TA tech and HR tech world. So I did that for a couple of years, really enjoyed working with Simply Hired. Decided to join a Silicon Alley startup, Recruitics, where I became the head of product. I was there for 8 years. Most recently, I was at talent.com for about the last year and a half as the VP of product there. And then in June, I left Talent to start my own fractional product management, leadership, and consultancy called Insignia Innovations. And then super excited. This is hot off the presses as of last Friday. So just 1 week ago, launched JobLeap.ai with two of my best friends and co-founders, Josh Gamble, former CEO at Recruitics, and Praseeth Govin, former CTO at Recruitics. So really excited to be here today to share a little bit more about myself and what I'm up to. I'm sure everybody's super interested in hearing more about JobLeap. I'm not going to go into that today. We'll save that for another time. But I want to tell a little bit of a story. It was the fall of 2016, and I was making my rounds at the conferences, at the conventions, schmoozing the various candidates for president. And I was the director of product management at Recruitics, as seen here, directing. For those who don't know him, this is my best friend, Jonathan Zila, EVP at Recruitics. Look him up, great human, highly recommend him, 5 stars. And we had a clear vision to become the Google Analytics of recruitment. Easy to install, easy to use, best in class, and like Google Analytics, ubiquitous. Not only did we have a clear vision, we had a clear mission. For the next 6 to 9 months, our task was to make and build Recruitics Analytics into a freemium product and then launch it at an industry conference. So we had our vision, we had our mission, and we had our plan, the roadmap, which included discovery. So doing interviews with our target market to understand their underserved needs. We recruited 30 or so SMB to mid-market direct employers and staffing companies to talk about how they advertise and how they track their ROI. We used what we learned in those interviews to develop our minimum viable product, our MVP, which was a lightweight recruitment marketing analytics tool. We went back to those same folks in our private beta test, where we worked with them very closely to onboard, to use the product, to gather in-depth feedback from interviews and from observing their behaviors in the tool. And from there, we identified what next set of features we would need to delight users, turning that MVP into an MLP, or minimum lovable product.
Oh, wait, did you create that, or is that a thing?
No,
I never heard that.
yeah, I did not make up minimum lovable product. It's a couple of years old at least.
Nice.
And so we really dialed in our product marketing. We got the materials together, and we were set to launch at an industry conference. And we did just that. This is us at Bullhorn Engage in 2017, launching Recruitics Analytics.
Nice.
What we'd set out to do about 8 or 9 months prior. And man, was it a lot of work. But wow, it was such a fun ride. And not only did we launch the product, we even won an award, the Recruiting Service Innovation Award, or RESI, from TA Tech for the most innovative big data solution. So that's Tim Deneen, Josh Gamble, and Jonathan Zila accepting the award. I unfortunately did not get to attend the award ceremony. But that didn't stop me from showing some love in a lonely conference room off of Fifth Avenue in New York City. And the rest is history, right? Recruitics Analytics became as big as Google Analytics, right? Didn't it? No.
Well, it depends what industry you're in, right?
No, it did not.
Yeah.
It did not. So what happened? Why didn't it? What went wrong here? Well, in product management, you have to do three things really, really well. You've got to do discovery, understanding your target market, their underserved needs, the problem space, competitors, alternatives. You need to do development in the middle, building your product, roadmaps, backlogs, your agile, your waterfall, your stories and requirements, and all that. Designing the right solution, having the right architecture. It's your technology, it's your people, and your process. And not only that, but you have to have the right go-to-market strategy. You have to have the right product marketing, your sales enablement, your distribution channels. And so these are some of the areas that we missed. We missed the target market. And along with that, the go-to-market strategy as well as distribution channels. We thought that the target market was everyone with a career site, but the market wasn't ready for that. The only real recruitment marketers out there were either at job boards doing advertising for the job boards themselves, or at recruitment ad agencies like Recruitics, like Ratency, then TMP, Shaker, and others, Bayer. And they were not at staffing companies yet. The recruitment marketers were not at staffing companies and direct employers yet, not at least to a significant degree. There were a few, don't get me wrong, but not to the degree that we wanted if we were going to grow. And because of that, we missed an opportunity to take our technology to the agencies. And thereby we left a gap for Appcast to fill. They got their tech to agencies faster. And because of that, they got a wider distribution of jobs through their platform even faster. So kudos to Chris Foreman and Tom Chevalier and the whole Appcast team. Well done. Well done. Hats off to you. But yeah, that was quite an adventure there. So quick recap. What did we learn? I wanted to tell a story a bit about product management to really drive the point home. So as I said, product management fundamentals, right? We talked about discovery, understanding the target market, and doing the right research so that you understand that market. We talked about development, building software with engineers, getting the right process, the right technology, the right architecture. We talked about delivery, your go-to-market, your product marketing, your sales enablement, your distribution channels. All of these are fundamentals of product management that I help with, that I can do. And it's not just that, but there's also other aspects to product management, including leadership around vision. What's the product vision? What's the strategy, right? We talked about the strategy and how we could have gone to market toward agencies, but instead we went to market with direct employers and staffing, and we missed an opportunity there. What's your mission? How do you communicate that? How do you align your organization? How do you design your product organization and your engineering organization to be effective? Should you do that around specific pieces of technology or around products or around customer? What's your roadmap? How do you build a roadmap? How do you make sure that your roadmap is detailed enough to help your organization align without being so prescriptive or so detailed that it's talking about particular delivery dates and things like that, which sometimes can be counterproductive? OKRs and other management frameworks that help align organizations and execute in the same direction. Analytics, this is one that's near and dear to my heart. I'm a huge analytics guy. Mergers and acquisitions, did a few of those in my day and evaluated a number of different opportunities before executing 2 of those with organizations that I've been with. Managing the board, managing up, and team development and things like competencies and all that. So here, these are some of the things that matter in product management and some of the things that I can help with and that I'm helping organizations with in my consultancy, Insignia Innovations. So real quick, how do you work with me? If you want to work with me, I have 3 engagement models. I've got a monthly retainer. I could become a dedicated member of the team for 1, 2, 3 days a week, depending on what the need is. And I can do everything from the leadership pieces all the way down to execution as a member of the team. I can also do project-based work where we have a conversation about what the need is. I then do some intake. I'll do a scope of work, put that in front of you. If you like it, great. If not, we negotiate, talk about it a little bit more, maybe cut scope, and then go from there. And then hourly for advisory, consultancy, and other smaller projects. You can do that as well. So I will pause there and turn it over to you.
Yeah, wow, great. That's fantastic. So I think it's good to have focus. And there's no doubt, Mark, what you're bringing and that expertise is just about that. It's the focus, it's the methodology. I have a question on that, and then I'll open it for others on the call. The methodology slide, can you go back to that a second?
Sure.
And
this one.
Yeah, where do you see in the product evolution for most companies to go through that build, buy, or partner kind of scenario. And how important is that to earlier stage companies compared to Series A or something like that?
Oh, so good. So yeah, the way that I think about this is that, and this has been true at several organizations that I've been a part of, there's a real tendency when you're smaller to try and build everything in-house because every dollar counts and you don't want to spend more on a subscription or some kind of partnership that's going to cost you money. And the reality is it's going to be more expensive in the long run to build that thing in-house because then you have all the maintenance burden that you're not factoring in. So partnerships can be so important and so useful in the early stages of an organization. The other reason is when you're building something, you are essentially saying, I believe that we're going to be in this game for the long haul. That's what you're saying when you're building it in-house. And that it's something that maybe you want this to be a core competency. And the reality is you can't be good at everything. You have to find that one or two things that you're going to be really good at and focus on those. That's where you put all your development energy. Everything else should be buy or partner, especially in those early stages. And this is one of the key ways that you can de-risk something. So you see here under development, I've got technology and people and process. And we forget that sometimes. Sometimes building the solution isn't really writing software, building technology. Sometimes it's just people and process. So much can be done that doesn't scale at an early stage just to figure out, hey, are we on the right track? Have we identified product market fit? Have we really zeroed in on the customer's problem? Do we understand that well? Right. And if we do, then great. Now you can go build that. But your MVP shouldn't be pure technology from the get-go, in my view.
Interesting. And do you see that changing now? I mean, with your help, of course, and the generative AI and things, there's a lot of new products popping up like almost overnight.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the MVP, is that going to change? How do you see yourself advising some, you don't have to give away free advice here, but
sure.
How do you see yourself engaging with an earlier stage company? How early they bring in a fractional CPO?
Yeah, it seems like there are maybe two questions there. I'll answer the second one first. When should you bring in a fractional CPO? Well, it's really any time a fractional chief product officer or a fractional product leader, but especially before you can afford a full-time one. If you don't have that expertise on your staff, I mean, the other piece is you can do this while you're looking for the full-time person because, and I've seen this for organizations, they need product leadership. They know they do, but they know it's going to take 6 months or more to get the right person in the seat. Meanwhile, they've got to execute. They have KPIs to achieve. They've got deliverables to hit for the board, commitments that they have to deliver on. And that's where I can really come in and help. And it doesn't have to be a forever thing. It can be a short-term engagement, 3, 6, 9-month engagement as needed. So that's where I see a lot of value is kind of in that between time. The other question I think was about the technology changing so rapidly now that you can effectively build an MVP with technology without needing to do as much people and process. So I think the answer is yes, the technology is rapidly changing. One of the organizations that I'm working with right now is seeing exactly this, that we were commenting on both of our histories. I was talking to the CTO, their history building technology in sort of the Web 2 era, where the way that you build software is much, much different than what you're doing today. Today, you can move so fast because so many things are out of the box, they're turnkey. You can just go to a service. You don't have to stand up an AWS account and configure your entire AWS environment, your VPC, your virtual private container. And so like you don't need all of the DevOps functions that go along with it. Now, are those necessary? Of course they are, but the degree to which you need to rely on those and the time it takes to get up to like a critical mass of being able to have a functional engineering organization is much, much lower now. And that's really exciting because you can move so fast. Having said that, I'm also working with another organization who's taking the strategy that I mentioned before. Their entire approach right now is build nothing, build nothing. They've identified a value proposition and a target market and an underserved need. They're going after that. And they're doing it by creating partnerships, and they're plugging different things in, and they're building with people and process to prove value in the first go. And once they've done that, then they'll go build software to say, yes, we're onto something. This is working. Now we need to get the unit economics to work. So we're going to build software. That way we can do this on our own. We don't have to pay the third party to do it. We can do it on our own. We don't have to pay for our own time in managing that manually. And we can automate some of these processes.
That's fascinating. You need to come up with another term. If it's not MVP or MLP, what would that be to describe that?
Well, no, I think it still is an MVP, but it's just one that is, what do we call it? Like a Wizard of Oz, right? It's where it looks like on the front end that it's doing all of this magic and it looks automated. Expensify is a great example of this. It seems like magic. Early days Expensify, it seemed like magic. This is before they had plugged in OCR. Seems like magic. You snap a picture of your receipt, and it just seems like magic. Oh, look, it captured all the right information. Well, in the back, they had a human who was like looking at your receipt, typing it in. And they did that enough, and they were able to train machine learning models on that. They had OCR to be able to read the actual text and then parse it in the right ways. You do that enough, you build a big enough data set, now you can get really good at that. You can automate the humans out of the process. Suddenly this becomes an economically viable business. But that's where like getting these things in the right order is important. If you look at my website, we'll flash over there for a minute.
Yeah.
Right. We have these three things, right? Create, capture, scale. The first thing you have to do in product is create value for your customer, right? And you don't necessarily have to capture value from them yet. It doesn't have to be an economically sustainable business yet. You just have to create enough value that the user's interested, that they'll keep going, that they'll use your product. And once you've done that, then you can move to try and capturing value. That could be directly from your user. It could be from a third party in the form of ads. It could be part of a marketplace where you're actually extracting value from the marketplace by making matches and things like that. And then again, creating value, capturing value, it doesn't have to be sustainable in the first go. It's okay if you're burning cash in the first go, as long as you're doing that at an effective burn rate and that you believe that the unit economics will improve as you scale. And that's the last piece, the scaling up. So those are really like the three things that I help companies do. And I do that using the process here, discovery, development, delivery.
That's brilliant. Yeah, it's great. What's interesting too, and I think why I'm so excited that you're launching this for our industry, because we desperately need it. And I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I talk to that are creating a new business. Then when I ask them, do they have fractional advisors that they're working with to help get these go to market and the product and all these other things in place, like what you're describing? Like, oh, we're going to hire somebody full-time to take that role, or we don't have the money for that because we're going to hire somebody full-time. I'm thinking, why would you do that anymore?
Yeah,
You'd be
it's a risk. Yeah, and the other beautiful thing about fractional, right? You can try before you buy. You can figure out what kinds of things you like, what kinds of things your organization needs before you go and say, I'm going to make a full-time commitment to this hire, which, by the way, if it doesn't work out, you're going to give that person, let's say 6, maybe 9 months in the seat to see and make a good go of it before you know if it's really going to work out.
Right.
And then you're back to the drawing board for another 6 months to hire the next person. I mean, wow, what a waste of time and energy, right?
Yeah, see, I mean, it's almost every role, but people are like, well, we need to raise some money first. Okay, what do investors want? And I've seen a lot of decks where it's like, wow, look at that team. And then I'll peel back the onion and I'll go check them out on LinkedIn. And some of the people on the deck don't even represent the company on their LinkedIn profile. I'm thinking, is it real? The answer is they're hired as a fractional role at some level. Maybe it's pure equity. It might be a retainer. It might be something in between, which is fine. But I'm just wondering if you see that happening more. I imagine you're hoping, because that's part of what you're doing. Do you envision yourself being on maybe multiple slide decks being shown to investors as part of that solution?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, wherever I can help, that's where I want to add value. And if it's by communicating some confidence and capability to the board and to investors, then that's where I need to be. And that's really what product people do. We fill in the gaps of whatever it is that needs to be done. This is what I've got listed on the screen here. is a process that has been useful for me in communicating. But the reality of product management is you go wherever the need is to get the job done, because at the end of the day, you deliver or you die.
Wow. That's a tweet waiting to happen there. That's a good one, Mark.
You can quote me on that, Ward.
You got it. All right. First question from Seema Shahadi from Harbinger Group. And naturally, she's interested to know, as you're going through this process with some of the customers and they need more help in the actual creation, because you're not a developer yourself, right, Mark? You don't code or,
Correct. Yeah, I am not a trained developer. I'm not a developer by trade, though I have built entire job marketplaces from the ground up myself. That is not my specialty. I am capable. I'm good enough to be dangerous. I've also done some coursework in data science and machine learning. Analytics problems, data problems are a passion of mine. I love getting in there, love using the tools when necessary, but I'm not going to be somebody who can build the solution from the ground up. That's not really my expertise.
Well,
but it's a useful skill to have in partnering with engineers, with CTOs, with technical teams, so that I can be conversant in those topics and can wade through some of those details to get to the real critical pieces and then make forward progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And also when they say, oh yeah, it's done, it's like, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When to call BS. So I guess related to that question is, do you envision, as your business grows, partnering with groups potentially like Harbinger Group to help bring in that adjunct development staff and some specialists in the technology that knows the space to supplement the team? Same kind of question from before, like instead of hiring full-time developers and not knowing for sure, can they utilize them properly, maybe partnering with a group that can help ramp up and maybe even continue to support outside the direct hire type arrangement. Is it something you envision growing in the future?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it just depends on the nature of the engagement. Some organizations already have technology staff that they've consulted with and engaged. I think that's where most companies that I've seen, they're already there. They started with the CEO, the founder or the co-founder, and maybe one of them was technical and the other one was the business person. Or they were both business people, but they've already partnered with the technology firm to get things off the ground. But what they didn't realize was that there's all this other stuff that you have to think about, this discovery, this development, this delivery, that's going to help make the best use of those resources. And that's what product is here to do. So yeah, I think some of those organizations, as I said, already have technology staff either in-house or that they've contracted with. Others, though, I imagine will need that, and I'm happy to partner with others to bring those in where it makes the most sense.
No, it's great. And to that end, that's part of the mission of HR Tech Alliances, to showcase first and foremost our members in terms of who's available as advisors. We do have now on the homepage, as of yesterday, a link under advisory to the directory of members who offer themselves for different types of services, and ranging from going to market, getting M&A from investment bankers and different types of advisors and consultants. And then of course yourself at the moment, the only one doing product as an advisor that's also a member, but it's exciting to launch that kind of new vertical within our group. So yeah, there's a lot of areas to cover. And to your point, as you go through the build, buy, or partner, you could potentially partner with a known group instead of individuals perhaps as well. Do you envision yourself growing to add more, if there is anybody else as good as you out there, to add more advisors or consultants within the CPO type role?
Potentially, but we'll see where it goes. If there's enough demand and people are banging down the door, then I'll have to scale it up somehow. But I would love to have that problem. But yeah, thanks for the question, Seema. Really, really good question though.
And I see a hand up there with Lloyd. Hope your arm's not tired. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thanks for the patience, Lloyd.
Lloyd, do you want to just hop on either video or audio there and shoot your question over for Mark?
So it seemed like a lot of the presentation leaned more towards Steve Blank's, was it called lean methodology, the lean startup. And in that, he talks about some markets don't need to be tested, such as he uses cancer development. He said there's an infinite and known demand for cancer, so you don't have to go and see if there's a demand. So I've been in talent acquisition for 20 years. I'm working on my own startup, and I don't feel like I need to test that there's a demand for talent acquisition if my hypothesis is that I can deliver a similar product or a similar solution for significantly less money. In the slide deck we're looking at, I'm not seeing that kind of play, that you're a back end play, and that the demand for talent acquisition doesn't need to be tested.
It's a good question. Well, first, in a slide deck, you're always generalizing. And especially when you're talking about a subject that maybe some people aren't familiar with, you're generalizing. But I think there are plenty of cases where there are knowns that would mean that the amount of research you have to do is lower, and potentially the way that you do that research is less intensive. Having said that, though, I think one of the mistakes that a lot of founders make is they think they know the problem, they think they know the solution, and then they just go right to execution, and they miss some of those gotchas that frankly we missed when I was building Recruitics Analytics at Recruitics. Yeah, like people advertise for jobs. People want to know where their advertising dollars are going. But what we missed was one of the key things that we learned actually in these interviews was that the folks that we were talking to, even though they were responsible for understanding where the marketing dollars were going, that was about 2% of what they cared about. The other 98% of their day was spent actually executing the TA function.
Yeah.
It was mostly recruiting. And so that was really interesting because here we were marketers trying to market our marketing solution to other marketers. And turns out our customers weren't marketers at all. And while they cared about the problem of marketing, and while they cared about solving that problem, to them, it was a means to an end, right? And so sometimes it's not necessarily about like, is it the right solution? To your point, yes, there's demand, but understanding and framing the problem in the same way that the customer, the user frames that problem is critical, because you might have the right solution to the problem. It might be a real, beneficial solution that creates a ton of value for that user. But if you're not talking to them in the language that they understand that really resonates, you're missing them on product marketing, in other words, then they're not going to know that that's the solution for them and that it's going to create a lot of value. So I don't know if that answers your question directly. I do think there's a gradient, as you said. But I do think that doing the research and making sure that that's part of your process is critical. And like I said, it'll look different. Sometimes you don't need to go do a bunch of interviews, but you might need to look at competitors or look at alternatives. This is one of the other big learnings is that our biggest competitor, when we were developing Recruitics Analytics and Recruitics automation platform, it wasn't Appcast. It was actually spreadsheets and ATS source reports. That was our biggest competitor. There were far more companies that were just trying to wing it and looking at their spreadsheet, looking at their vendor report, looking at their ATS source report and trying to make some sense out of it than there were companies working with Appcast or working with a competing agency. And so those learnings can be really critical. They can help you find a wedge and a way to get into a market that maybe you didn't think about before.
That answers my question, I think, better than you would even anticipate. I'm just with the lean methodology, lean startup, and in this slide we're looking at, I think it's underemphasized about positioning and differentiation and social validation. If you're trying to say you're different, it's really hard to get those first customers. Nobody wants to be first, but it's a part of what you need to do. But getting all that right. So it's almost like sales are underemphasized, or the effect of being the third or fifth or 15th time a customer has heard of your company's name, and then you call them and then they're like, oh yeah, I'll talk to you because I've heard of you. There's something about that flywheel in sales, marketing, positioning, branding. And this is all assuming that you are offering a similar product at half the price.
Yeah. It's definitely the branding, the marketing, social positioning is a huge one now, especially with influencers and the rise of that whole world. But it can also be about a distribution. So one of the strategies that I was advising an organization about a distribution strategy, and this is an organization that could have a really strong brand, but doesn't yet. And they actually had a large sales force focused on direct relationships and direct sales acquisition. Now, that's an uphill battle. Why would you do that? Why would you waste any time doing that? Instead, you should have a distribution strategy to go to agencies, recruitment marketing agencies, sell to them directly, because those ones are going to help you get more ad dollars faster because your incentives are aligned. And then as you start to show success with those agencies, guess what? Those agencies are going to be showing you and your brand to those customers in QBRs and things like that. So you're going to get this positive brand effect over time, which then allows you to sell direct much more easily in 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years time frame. So yes to the branding piece, but also it can be a distribution thing.
Thanks for addressing that. It's really interesting. And the whole marketing piece, of course, is critical. Certainly some of our other members are experts in that. And I love your example, Mark. You're like, hey, I'm going to help our clients by telling them about the mistakes that I made so they don't hopefully make the same, right?
That's right.
That's a huge part of the value. And I think that's often also forgotten, to Lloyd's point about what can you assume and what can't you. We have a few minutes left here before we need to wrap. And this has been a great introduction to your business.
Thank you.
I've had some fun here talking to you and really appreciate the opportunity to learn more.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate that you're joined as a member and didn't hesitate to get started in supporting the alliances and the community. So thank you on behalf of the community for that. And any other closing thoughts around your new launch and your business, or what should we expect next besides maybe a demo of this hot product that you're just about to launch?
Yeah, demo for JobLeap coming soon. But yeah, you'll have to wait with bated breath for that one. On the Insignia Innovations front, you can find me and find more about me at insigniainnovations.com. You can reach out to me, Mark, at insigniainnovations.com. So yes, Mark with a K at insigniainnovations.com. I'd be happy to set up a time to chat just to get acquainted. And we don't even have to do business together. I love meeting new people and just getting to know, what folks are working on, what their problems are. So I'd love to talk to you if you have time and energy.
Fantastic. Well, again, Mark, thank you for being on the new member showcase and spotlight, and certainly look forward to hearing future advancements as your new business keeps growing. And congrats on the first customer launch already. That's amazing.
Thanks, Ward.
I look forward to hearing about many more. So with that, we'll wrap up this segment of the town hall. In a few minutes, we'll open the doors for others to join, and we'll actually need to switch to the other Zoom link. But for those watching this, don't miss the regular town halls as well, every Friday at noon Eastern.